My name is Deborah, and for 30 years I've shared my life with Michael, my husband. We've weathered storms together, our bond growing stronger with each challenge. Michael's best friend Tom has been a fixture in our lives, always bringing laughter and energy to our gatherings. His presence at our dinners or weekend barbecues was as predictable as the sun rising. One Friday evening, after a week that felt like it would never end, Tom called. His voice was unusually animated, filled with a kind of excitement that was infectious. "Let's go out tonight," he proposed, his words almost tumbling over each other in his eagerness. "I know this nightclub where we can step back in time just for a night. It'll be fun." Michael, ever the adventurer, didn't hesitate. "Count us in," he said, his enthusiasm matching Tom's. And there I was, caught in the whirlwind of their nostalgia, feeling the pull of our younger, wilder days. The idea of dancing under neon lights, the music pulsing through us, was too tempting to resist. What could possibly go wrong with a night out with old friends? The thought barely crossed my mind as I imagined the night ahead. The promise of laughter, the thrill of the dance floor, and the comfort of familiar company seemed like the perfect recipe for a memorable evening. Little did I know, the night would unfold in ways none of us could have anticipated. We dressed up, me in a dress that hadn't seen the light of day in years, and Michael in his favourite suit. The nightclub was a blast from the past, with neon lights and music that made you feel like you were back in the 80s. The atmosphere was electric, and for a moment it felt like time had reversed. Michael, always the social butterfly, started mingling with the crowd, leaving me and Tom at our table. Tom ordered us drinks, his eyes sparkling with the thrill of the night. "To old times," he toasted, and we clinked glasses. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and the energy was infectious. As the night progressed, Michael, not one to handle his liquor well, began to show signs of overindulgence. His laughter grew louder, his movements more exaggerated, until he stumbled and found himself under the bar, passed out. I glanced over at Tom, who was now watching the scene unfold with a mix of amusement and concern. "Should we get him home?" I asked, my voice barely carrying over the pulsating beats. Tom shook his head, his expression turning serious. "Let him sleep it off here for a bit. It's safer than dragging him out now." As we waited, the club seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the crowd oblivious to our little drama. Tom leaned closer, his voice low. "You know, Deb, sometimes I wonder if we're all just running from something. Michael, with his escapades, you with your quiet strength, and me. Well, I guess I'm just trying to keep the party going." I nodded, understanding more than he might realise. With Michael out of commission, Tom turned his attention fully to me. "Let's not let the night go to waste," he said, his voice low and comforting. He ordered another round of cocktails, his hand lingering on mine as he passed me the drink. The touch was familiar yet charged with something new. As we danced, Tom's arm found its way around my waist, pulling me closer. I felt the warmth of his body, the scent of his cologne, and for a moment I was transported back to a time when such closeness was innocent. But then, he leaned in, his lips brushing against my neck. A shiver ran through me, not of revulsion, but of something else, something I hadn't felt in years. What would you do in a moment where your heart and mind are at odds? The music seemed to slow, the lights dimming around us, creating a bubble where only Tom and I existed. His breath was warm against my ear as he whispered, "Deb, you're beautiful tonight." The words, simple yet laden with a depth of emotion, stirred something within me. I pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes, searching for the friend I've known for decades, but instead I saw a man looking at me with an intensity that was both thrilling and terrifying. His gaze held a question, a silent plea for something more than friendship. My heart raced, not just from the dance, but from the sudden realization of where this night might lead. The club's atmosphere, once electric with the energy of the past, now felt charged with a different kind of electricity. Tom's hand slid down to the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd, away from where Michael lay, oblivious to the world. We found a quieter corner, the music still loud but less intrusive here. Deb. Tom's voice was almost a whisper. I've always admired you, your strength, your grace. His words were like a caress, gentle yet firm, stirring emotions I thought were long buried under the routine of married life. I felt the pull, the undeniable attraction, but also the weight of my vows, the life I've built with Michael. The conflict. The music seemed to fade into the background as Tom whispered, "Let's find somewhere quieter." Without much thought, I followed him to the restroom, the dim lighting and the distant thump of the bass creating a surreal bubble around us. There, in the privacy of the restroom, what started as a dance of nostalgia turned into something far more intimate. Our bodies moved closer, the space between us charged with an electric tension that was both thrilling and terrifying. His touch was gentle yet insistent, stirring emotions I thought were long buried under the routine of married life. We returned to the bar where Michael was still out cold, his face peaceful in his drunken slumber. Tom and I exchanged a look, a silent agreement to keep our secret. The weight of what had just happened hung between us, a silent pact sealed in the dim light of the club. We helped Michael to the car, his head lolling as we maneuvered him into the back seat. The drive home was quiet, the only sound the soft snoring from the back. Can a secret shared in the heat of the moment remain hidden? The question echoed in my mind as we drove through the night. Tom's hand found mine on the gear shift, squeezing gently, a reminder of our shared indiscretion. The streetlights cast fleeting shadows over us, each flicker a reminder of the fleeting nature of our actions. As we pulled into our driveway, the reality of our situation began to settle in. Michael, still unconscious, was a stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions I was feeling. Tom helped me carry him inside, his presence now a comforting yet complicating factor in my life. Once Michael was safely in bed, Tom lingered by the door, his eyes searching mine for something I wasn't sure I could give. "Deb, he started, but I placed a finger on his lips, stopping him. "Let's not say anything more tonight," I whispered, the gravity of our actions pressing down on me. "We'll talk later when we've both had time to think." Tom nodded, his gaze heavy with unspoken words. He turned to leave, but not before our eyes met one last time. A silent acknowledgement of the line we had once home. We laid Michael on the couch, his deep slumber undisturbed. The night's events replayed in my mind like a forbidden dance, each step leading us closer to a precipice I never thought we'd approach. Tom, his eyes still holding that spark from the club, followed me into the bedroom. There, in the dim light, it happened again. The thrill of the forbidden, the rush of adrenaline, it was all there, overwhelming and intoxicating. His touch was like a whisper, stirring the embers of a fire I thought had long been extinguished. Afterwards, Tom left, his departure as silent as his arrival. I lay next to Michael, his steady breathing a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. His presence, once a source of comfort, now felt like a silent accusation. I closed my eyes, trying to convince myself that it was just a moment of weakness, a slip in judgment. But can one truly sleep with a conscience so stirred? The room was dark, the only light seeping in from the streetlights outside, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with my guilt. I turned to look at Michael, his face serene in sleep, unaware of the storm that had just passed through our lives. My heart ached with a mixture of guilt and confusion. What had I done? What did this mean for us, for our marriage, for our friendship with Tom? I lay there, the silence of the room amplifying the echoes of my thoughts. Each breath Michael took seemed to question my loyalty, my fidelity. I reached out, my hand hovering over his, not daring to touch, afraid that the contact would somehow reveal my betrayal. The night stretched on, each minute feeling like an eternity. I replayed the moments with Tom in my mind, the heat of his breath, the intensity of his gaze, the way he made me feel alive in a way I hadn't for years. But with each recollection, the weight of my vows, the life I've built with Michael, pressed down harder, a reminder of what was at stake. I whispered into the darkness, "I'm sorry, Michael. though he couldn't hear me. The words felt hollow, inadequate against the backdrop of the next morning. Life resumed its usual rhythm. Michael woke up with a hangover, none the wiser about the events of the previous night. Tom called to check on Michael, his voice casual, betraying nothing. As I went about my day, the weight of what had happened began to settle. I felt a mix of guilt, confusion, and a strange sense of liberation. The night out had indeed been a journey back in time, but not in the way I had anticipated. Now, I'm left pondering the nature of loyalty, the fragility of trust, and the unpredictable paths our hearts can lead us down. The morning light seemed to cast a different shadow on everything. Michael, still groggy from the night before, asked if I had fun. I nodded, my smile strained, the taste of deceit bitter on my tongue. As I moved through the motions of our daily routine, my mind was elsewhere, replaying the moments with Tom. The touch of his hand, the whisper of his breath, the way he looked at me with a longing that stirred something deep within. It was exhilarating, yet now in the stark light of day it felt like a betrayal not just of Michael, but of myself. I made coffee, the aroma filling the kitchen, a mundane act that felt laden with significance. Michael, oblivious, chatted about the club, about how he vaguely remembered the music, the lights, but nothing else. His innocence, his trust in me. It was like a knife twisting in my heart. I wondered about Tom, what he was thinking, feeling. Did he regret the night, or was he like me, caught in the whirlwind of emotions? Our shared secret hung between us, an unspoken bond that now felt like a chain. The day wore on, and with each passing hour the reality of my actions sank deeper. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had crossed a line, one that might change everything. Michael, ever the loving husband, asked if I wanted to go out for brunch. I agreed, the normalcy of the suggestion a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. At the brunch place, as we sat across from each other, I watched Michael, his "Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you."